Focus here. We're in there not together.
For Luka, terrible is not the word our guys would use to describe his 42-point, 13-assist performance last night. And LeBron's season on the brink. How can the Lakers avoid an early exit? Timber! Dame time. Cut short in Denver in Game 5. Can Portland force Jokic and the Nuggets into a Game 7? So take a bow, Trae Young. The jump, indeed, starts right now.
Welcome to The Jump, presented by Dell.
I was all in on that bow. You've got it back and forth with the fans the entire series. You win. You are allowed to talk your talk. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols, joined in studio. I'm just going to keep repeating those two words. NBA champ Matt Barnes and the host of the Hoop Collective podcast, Mr. New York Times bestseller, Brian Windhorst. Guys, we're going to get into Trae's theatrics. We'll preview the East semifinals with Malika Andrews on this show. But first, Los Angeles is an interesting basketball town. There is very little that Lakers fans seem to like more than making fun of the Clippers. At the same time, there seems to be very little that Clippers fans like more than watching the Lakers trip and fall. So it's been quite a roller coaster stretch here in LA. First, we had the Clippers going down 0-2 at home to the Mavericks, while at the same time the Lakers were up 2-1 on the Suns. And let me tell you, at that point, the Lakers fans had all the jokes. And then Anthony Davis got hurt, and the Lakers looked lifeless. While the Clippers went into Dallas and ripped off 2 big road wins, which meant, yep, a lot of big talk on that side of the fence. Now, though, Lakers and Clippers fans have a lot more in common than they would like, with both teams on the brink of not just elimination, but the kind of early elimination that produces franchise-shaking soul-searching. Let's game out the conversation if tonight the Lakers let the Suns win a 3rd game in a row and close the defending champs out on their own floor. Some of it will be about bad luck and injuries and bubble hangovers, and all of that is valid. It's hard to go much of anywhere when your 2 biggest stars miss huge chunks of time. And hey, the other team from last year's bubble finals is already out of the playoffs and lounging on South Beach. But a first-round playoff exit would also expose some real questions for the Lakers about the degree to which LeBron is finally aging, about Anthony Davis's consistency, about the other pieces in the starting lineup. Personally, I would have loved to have seen the Lakers pull off the trade for Kyle Lowry that was on offer back at the deadline. Yes, it would have cost L.A. Dennis Schroeder and a piece of the future, but when you have a 36-year-old LeBron James, the only mode to be in is win-now mode. And boy, could the Lakers use Lowry's grit and experience right now to help them bridge through AD's most recent injury. Meanwhile, over in Clipperville, things feel even more dire. Luka Doncic is nursing a neck injury, and yet last night managed to once again be the best player on the floor, racking up 42 points, 8 rebounds, 14 assists. Or to put it another way, he either scored or assisted on all but 6 of Dallas's baskets. That is insane. In fact, in the history of the NBA, no one has ever accounted for a higher percentage of field goals in a single basketball game. And the irony is that a challenge like Luka is the exact reason that 2 years ago the Clippers traded nearly everything in their offices that wasn't nailed down for the rights to Paul George and the chance to sign Kawhi Leonard. These are 2 of the NBA's best two-way players, and we've seen them both be absolute lockdown defenders in the past. But neither has been able to do that in this series. And offensively, well, PG has had some strong games in a row. He was plus 17 last night, and LA's biggest problems came when he was sitting with foul trouble. Kawhi has also had his bright spots, but when last night's game came down to a 3 in the corner with only 1 defender on him, he airballed it, sealing the Clippers' loss. Afterward, cameras caught Rajon Rondo giving Kawhi this look, which, as you can imagine, NBA Twitter had a field day with. There was this, and then you see the Rondo face on the, yeah, that's not right. Still, the biggest question with Kawhi isn't about how he's going to bounce back in Game 6. It's what happens if the Clippers lose Game 6. Remember, PG signed an extension with the Clippers in the offseason. Kawhi did not. In fact, he has an opt-out in his contract to become a free agent this summer. By the way, this is a fact that Lakers fans usually love bringing up to Clippers fans, but we actually didn't even see much of that last night. The roller coaster for both these teams is in free fall right now. They've got too much about their own situation to worry about each other. So, Matt, You have played for both of these LA teams.
Yes.
Which one is in more danger right now, the Lakers or Clippers?
I would say the Lakers from a standpoint of AD had an injury-prone career, and the growing he went down with doesn't look like something that's going to heal in a week or even 2 weeks. But do you even risk bringing him back tonight, knowing that he has an injury-filled background? To me, if I'm looking long picture, long term, I know, like we said before the show, if they lose tonight, they have a vacation. But still, do you even risk that? Because groins are those one injuries that you can't really tell you're really ready to go, even if you're feeling good, until you're actually in the game and you have to do something instinctual, not directed by a trainer before the game. Cut left, cut right, come forward, come backwards. But when you have to instinctually act in a game. So I'm erring on the side of caution. And with that said, with AD's health uncertain, not only for this round, if they're able to sneak past this round, we're not sure if that'll happen, but just long term, you got to really protect AD.
Well, the Lakers are in greater danger because they're banged up, not just AD, as you mentioned, but LeBron's still not right. We can see that. And, KCP is not right. And so if you're going to try to win a game against a team like the Suns, who's playing great, you got to have your full array. But I will say this, that even if tonight's is the end of the Lakers season, they're going to, be a little upset, but they can look up into the ceiling and see the banner. They can look down at the star on the floor and look, there is a tax that was paid by all the teams that went deep in the bubble. The Heat are gone. The Celtics are gone. The Nuggets are hanging on for dear life, even though they're really badly beaten down. And if the Lakers go out in the first round, it'll be a disappointment, but it'll be like, you know what? If this was what we had to pay to get that title, it's okay. So that's not something the Clippers have. And so the Laker fans will still have bragging rights no matter what happens the rest of this week.
What do you see happening with the Clippers if they don't make it out of the series? Because we remember the expectations that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George came into with streetlights over spotlights, all the comparisons to the Lakers, the disappointing second round exit after being up 3-1 in that series last year, and then nobody would have predicted a first-round playoff exit this year, especially after they essentially picked their playoff opponent in the final couple days of the regular season.
Well, as you mentioned, Luka outplayed Kawhi last night, and that's not a drag on Kawhi. That's going to happen. Luka's an all-time great player, I think. The problem is games 1 and 2 of this series, the way they performed in those games, and now they've got to pay for it. So I actually have been spending the last few hours, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, researching what Steve Ballmer did at Microsoft when they had failures, because unfortunately for him, he had a couple of giant failures when he had a couple of huge successes. That's why he's worth $70 billion. He had some big failures. Remember the Zune? Didn't work. To see what they did, but honestly, I think when you look at it, they have not gotten the requisite point guard in here. And when you look at the organization, you can look at other things that are issues. Their point guard situation is really not excusable, and so that's why I think if there's a penalty to be paid, it's going to be by the front office. But it's not like those guys have not done a good job. They have. Somebody's just going to probably have to pay.
But let's keep in mind that it takes a handful of years to get a good team up and rolling, and I think the fact that they play in LA and there's so much pressure from down the hall to win something, win, because they never have won. This team's only been together for 2 years, and their stars.
But Matt, Kawhi signed for 2 years.
You're right. But the stars in both seasons really haven't got a chance to gel because they've been in and out and so inconsistent. So it'll be interesting to see. I still feel like they have a chance to come back and make some noise in this series. But at the end of the day, if they happen to lose, to give something only 2 years before it has to be blown up is crazy.
Well, I don't think they're going to blow it up. I don't think they're going to.
Well, not necessarily blow it up, but if Kawhi walks, you're starting again. Obviously, you'll still have Paul George and some other pieces, but Kawhi is the center focal of that team. So if he walks after 2 years, that's really up to him. But to me, it's crazy because it's really only been 2 years, and any team that's made a run or a dynasty, it takes some time. Lakers got lucky getting AD and going right away, but it doesn't only happen that way.
I don't think anybody knows how Kawhi feels. We learned that a couple years ago, but you can relate to this because you spent a lot of your career trying to play in Southern California or at least on the West Coast. You sacrificed a lot. I know you left a lot of money on the table, and that's for a podcast. Kawhi sacrificed a lot and did a lot to get here. I don't think he's walking out the door.
I was going to say, again, He has not shared what he's
Right.
thinking. In fact, I sat down with him earlier this year, and he very specifically declined to answer that. And that is completely his right. If you made me put money on something, my money would be on Kawhi staying here. I think that he wanted this fit with this team, and I think he's dedicated to seeing it through. But I do think that this organization is going to have to take a long look at itself if they have a second-round playoff exit and a first-round playoff exit, because as Doc Rivers said last year when he was still the coach, the goal is not even to just get to the conference finals with this franchise. The goal was a title, and this would, of course, be falling short. But who knows? Maybe they make a stand in Dallas, and this is what's great about these pivotal games. It could be just part of a great story, right? It could be one step along the way where they stood up and showed how gutty they were and then went on to win a title. So you never know. Let's talk about more, though, the Lakers' health situation. Anthony Davis currently listed as a game-time decision after missing Game 5 with that groin injury. LeBron James also has never in his 15 playoff appearances lost in the first round of the playoffs. So, Brian, coming off that 30-point loss in Phoenix, what do you think has to change for LA tonight?
They've got to figure out a way to get some spacing. LeBron, without AD or without AD at 100%, they need more scoring. The only way LeBron can provide more scoring is if he can get into the lane. And if you watch it in this series, the Suns' defense has been getting closer and closer and closer together. Part of it is that the Lakers cannot make an outside shot. Part of it is Andre Drummond can't bring Ayton out of the paint. And LeBron is having difficulty getting space to operate. They have got to figure out a way to create driving lanes, because their offense isn't good enough without LeBron, scoring a lot of points.
I just think we've been so spoiled for so long, and when I say this, it's not even any disrespect, but LeBron is getting older. I think we're accustomed in situations, especially like this. He's been built for these situations where they're shorthanded, and he's going to come out and put the cape on and score 40, 50, 60, do whatever it takes to be done. In year 18, not that he played bad, 24, 7, and 5. He's just not. I don't even want to base this off of one game, but like I said, I just think we're starting to see that he is actually getting a little older. So these role players are going to have to step up. You need Kuzma to step up. You need Drummond to step up. Whatever's going on with Harrell, you're going to need his energy out there, him to play. You need Caruso to play well. You need Schroeder. You need these role players to carry their weight. They're getting paid good money. They need to be able to carry their weight. And then, like Brian said, they need to have some driving lanes, because you don't want LeBron settling all night from the outside. The beginning of last game, it looked like he had a pep in his step. He was bulldogging people, getting to the basket, scoring, but then that stopped halfway through the first quarter.
You know why I think it stopped? Because I think he realized it wasn't happening.
That early?